Do not let us die in the dark night of this cold winter is cool. It's a bit weird, but it's very cool. It's not a game. It's not an adventure. It's not a setting. But if you took those three and kind of like mushed them together, the intersection in the middle, that's where this sits. You could take it and you could play it in your D&D game over the course of a night, and it would fit in perfectly well, and it would be a really different night's gaming for you. So let's break this down a little bit further so you can actually know what the hell I'm talking about. It's written by Cecil Howe, who's from A Cone of Negative Energy. If you know the name, they are super cool. They're the ones who have made HexKit, which is one of my favorite hex mapping software. It creates beautiful, really cool maps, which I'm going to cover in another video. And this happened because one of his friends was running a game, and they wanted some downtime rules for like winter and looking after a village, making sure people don't die, that kind of thing. And he kind of created this off the back of that. And that's literally what it is. It's a mini game that you can play in a night in your campaign to try and keep a village alive over the course of an entire winter. It's based kind of like on a frontier type vibe, and it's just very, very cool. So the passage of time is tracked in turns, and by the amount of turns you have in this is kind of like sets up the difficulty. So your starting point is it's 10 turns plus 2 for every player you've got, or 10 turns plus an extra turn for every 2 players you have. So the more players you have, they've got the more ability to collect stuff, the longer winter's going to be. And during the winter, what they do is each player has their own individual house, which they're looking at with 5 villagers in, and they're trying to keep those villagers alive. Everybody's trying to keep their own villagers alive, and then together they're trying to keep as many alive as well. So there's a bit of not competition, but there's an extra dynamic in there when you've got your own house with your own villagers. And personally, I'd be having your player name them, and they're trying to keep them alive, particularly if this is going to be the place where they're going to be adventuring for in the future, which is really, really nice. It takes your current game system, and it breaks the classes down into 3 things. Strength, which is fighters, that kind of thing. Arcane, which is arcane or faith, which is your clerics and your magic users. And stealth or agility, which is your thieves and your hunters and all that kind of vibe. And each of those is slightly better at finding another resource. And there's 3 main resources in this game. There is medicine to stop people from being sick. There is food to stop people from starving to death. And there's fuel to stop people from freezing to death. And each turn, you're going to be going out and trying to get more of that and fill up the storeroom. And at the same time, you're going to be using the storeroom as well. Another really nice touch is the GM is going to be playing the role of the village elder. So it's an actual NPC that's going to be giving them advice as they go along. So the GM isn't actually against them in any shape or form, although they're rolling dice that will have a negative impact on them. They're actually trying to help them come along, which again is a nice little vibe for a night's gaming. So you can create the village. There's actually tools at the back for creating a village as well, which again I love the like of. I love anything that helps players be involved in world building and game building at the table. There's a bunch of hooks to get you started. All you really need is 2d6 to run this game, and that's it. And you'll be rolling a d3, which is just half of a d6, and that's all you need for the mechanics. You can also include some mechanics from your own game as well, which I really, really like. And there's kind of like you can mush them together really easily, although you just use the mechanics on this to get going. But there's also events that will happen as you go along, which is going to create more role-playing opportunities and just flesh out this village even more. So, as I said, each player has 1 building, and each building starts with 5 villagers in it. The players are then doing their very best to keep them alive. So there's also domestic animals. There is 1 domestic animal for each player. But your player can't decide when to do that. It needs to be a group decision on when to kill these domestic animals when food's down, which again adds a little bit of spice to it. And there's an awful lot of tactics within this game, not even for your players to win individually, but to keep as many people alive, which again I really, really like. So there's a bunch of steps, and there's like a process that happens every turn. Your starting point is you count the dead, which is a bit grim, but it's kind of cool. So you count the dead. So if people have been sick for 3 3 turns. If they've got 3 tick boxes for sick, they die. If they've been hungry for 2 turns, if this is their second turn without, or last was their second turn without food, they're going to die. Or if there wasn't enough fuel in their house in order to keep the place warm, somebody's going to die there as well. So your starting point is you roll the dice in order to, or you find out how many people died the last round. Then you roll a dice, a D3, to see how cold it's going to be. Now that is going to tell you how many units of fuel each building is going to need, which is kind of cool. So you have this kind of, you don't know how bad it's going to be. Players might have an idea of what they're going to be going after this next turn, but they don't fully know until they know how cold it's going to be, because that could have a really big impact. You have, you kind of then ration the supplies, put the supplies out to everybody else. So you have this big storeroom, which they've got a really cool handout for you to fill out. You make sure that everybody's got as much food as you can. Then your players kind of like decide what they're going to do. And there's going to be one player who's going to be in charge. Now there's also optional rules at the back, so you can play it ever so slightly different. But there'll be one player that's going to be the lead player for that turn. What they're going to do, what you're going to do as a group, is you're going to decide what you're going out to find. It might be, for example, fuel. The fighters are going to be better at getting fuel. So you roll 2d6, and if there's another, for every fighter that there's there, they get to roll, I think it's another d6. If you haven't rolled dice, and say you were a thief or a magic user, you roll a d3 to find out whether you happen to find any of your own resource whilst you were all out looking for firewood. And as you're doing this, you're kind of like, you're topping up this stock room, that's the storeroom that's constantly going down. And yeah, it's really cool. So I don't know whether I mentioned, the fighters are better at getting fuel, the magic users are better at getting medicine, and the thieves are better at getting, or the agility based ones are better at hunting, so getting food. So it's kind of a really cool tactical game that will build a village. But on top of that, when they're out getting supplies, there's just after that, on the next round, there's also occurrences that happen. Now these occurrences can be good or bad, mainly bad, but some good. And they add flavour and make it feel different every time you play it. But it also creates role-playing opportunities. And I could see this really kicking off into a cool role-playing session while this winter is progressing. I can see players really liking getting to like people within their houses and then potentially dying and that kind of stuff. It really loads and loads of flavour. You roll dice to find out, a d3 to find out how many people are going to be ill, and you're constantly making those choices of who gets medicine, who doesn't. You're kind of like negotiating that side of stuff as well. You do have an option when you're of putting 2 houses together if you need to. You can only have a maximum of 5 people in the house, but it will cut down the amount of fuel you need to burn. Again, more tactical decisions, and it's just nice. There's a bunch of occurrences here that happen, which again will spice things up. Animals breaking in and eating food. You've got desperate crows attack a villager walking out the storeroom, stealing food issues again. I think each of these tables kind of like has impacts on different areas. Again, like a village elder dropped a torch in the storeroom, igniting 3 units of fuel before the fire is extinguished. Just little things that happen, which will make it a little bit more interesting. The other thing that this game does really well is they give you a quick reference sheet. I love that. One thing that you can print out that has all of the steps, all the rules you need, make it really easy to run at the table. They then have character sheets. So they have the character sheets here, but I really like the fact that beforehand they have this page where they actually show you what goes where, what doesn't, so you know exactly how to use them. They're beautiful little character sheets. There is other hooks, like one of them is if you have a game with players that are too high powered, you can kind of put them into a snow globe and depower them. I never like depowering players. I'm not a fan of that. But then again, I'm not a fan of having players having that amount of power. So that's not the kind of game I like running. So that's not really an issue for me. But like, there's loads of options. There's optional rules, different things to spice up the game and bend it into your own, the way that you want. They also have nice little things here that you can just print out and create an actual village. And at the end of this, you have a village with NPCs who have survived and know your players. And it's just a nice little game. So you can pick this up on a Drive-Thru RPG. The link is below. I wanted to cover it because I like different things, and that's kind of what this channel is about, is finding things that I really like and I want to share from independent creators mainly, and just putting them out there. So hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.